Is this the shading?
Yep. It is. So 6.2 is system of equations and equalities. And like Andrew said, oh, is this just the shading? Yes, Andrew, it is. Okay. So we're going to solve inequalities in two variables. And yeah, talk about how does this apply to business. So for example, just making sure we remember how to graph inequalities. We're going to practice it with a calculator. Okay. It's a little different than using decimals because we can't use decimals in here. But so we're going to practice in the calculator. Step one is you have to get y by itself. So when I get y by itself here, I get y is greater than or equal to, I'll write it for y'all's sake, negative 2x plus 2. Agreed? So we're going to go to our calculator. I'm going to reset Sylvie because I don't know what I've been doing with her. So 2nd plus 712, I'm going to go to y equals. So you see right here where I'm just going to type in normal. So I'm going to type in negative 2x plus 2. But the thing here is that now we have an inequality and we wanted to say greater than. Because I want it to be greater than, I'm going to arrow over here to this line. So my little line here. And I need to change that. So my line is currently saying you want me to graph this as a line. And I don't want this to graph it as a line. I want it to graph, yes. I want it to graph as an inequality. So I'm going to arrow over and I'm going to click enter and I'm going to tell it what I needed to change it to. I need it to be an inequality. They do not use the inequality symbols. They use top and right corners. Okay. If it's at the top, this means greater than. If it's at the bottom, that means less than. Top, greater than, bottom, less than. Okay, so for our problem, we need a greater than. Does that make sense? So now I'm going to hit OK. And so when I hit graph, it's going to graph my line and then graph the shaded part. Okay, so that's graphing using graphing inequalities using technology. Okay, now I'm going to do this one. So let's on the other side. So we're going to mosey on over here. This time I'm going to get y by itself. So we have y is, I don't want you to show the picture yet. That one. Y is less than negative x squared plus 1, right? So we're going to go over here. I'm going to change it. I'm going to clear it. Just double clear to reset everything. I'm going to put in negative x squared plus 1. I'm going to arrow over to my line to change it because I need it to be less than. This time I'm going to make sure the arrows, the box, the corners in the bottom. The triangles in the bottom, hit OK. Yes, I'm sure. And now when I go graph, it's going to graph my quadratic with the shaded region. Got it? Questions about graphing the inequality using your handheld device? Yeah, I use the device. When you come up. No questions about that? Okay. So, is that not what it looked like in the calculator? Why, yes, it does. We're so smart. All right. What makes it a system? Well, what makes it a system is now that you have two inequalities that you're graphing and comparing. Does that make sense? So we're graphing and comparing. And what makes it a system is that you have multiple solutions and where that area meets. Okay. So, for example, on our first one here, the graph is showing us we have the quadratic graph and it's shaded below because it's less than or equal to. Also known as the quadratic is a solid line because it's equal to the quadratic, right? Then we have a linear graded shaded here. And it's also less than. Well, it looks like less than, but it's actually not less than. It becomes greater than. Can someone tell me why it switches? I had to divide by a -2. So initially I'm like, wait, hold on. It's less than. It's not less than because when you multiply or divide by a negative, what does it do to your inequality? It flips it. So this is what it ends up looking like. So in the calculator to get that yourself, remember, you are graphing y equals 1/2 x squared, but here you're graphing for the y by itself. I have to divide by a negative. So instead of it being less than, it became greater than. And I had 3 minus x, and each one was divided by a -2. Right? And that's why it's shaded above instead of shaded below. All right. Your solution is the region where they overlap. Okay. I'm going to model it in the calculator so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to my calculator, open it. I'm going to go to y equals, reset. And so I have 1/2 x squared. And then I'm going to, and that one is shaded below. So I'm going to arrow down, make sure it's below. And there's that. And then this one is going to be shaded above. So while I'm already here, arrow down, arrow over, enter, enter. And I'm going to write in the equation. I'm just going to write it as 1. So I don't have to write all those extra. 3 minus x divided by -2. Okay. So now when I hit graph, it's going to graph the quadratics inequality. Sylvie's a little slow. And then it's going to graph the linear. And the space where they overlap is my solution. So where the horizontal and the vertical lines meet, that's where the magic is. Yes? All right. Questions, comments, concerns? None? All right. Same thing for linears, but notice that my linears now, the lines are no longer solid. They are dashed. And why are they dashed? Is not equal to, okay? So pay attention to that when they're asking you which graph represents this. Pay attention to whether the lines are solid or dashed first, and then go from there. And that's it.